Hope you are well. It's such a nice morning, evening, afternoon. It depends on their time zones where we've been gathered by the MCN team to have a chat with Nikhil Taneja, our speaker for the day. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting session. I'm looking forward to your questions. We need to capture so much knowledge from Mr. Nikhil. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Gladys Njeri. I'm from Kenya. I'm an MCN fellow from the Technical University of Kenya. And today we'll be hosting Mr. Nikhil Taneja. But then before that, you are very welcome to introduce yourself in the chat box. We'll be checking out please let us know where you're coming from. And please, let's follow the format, your name, your country, and the university you're representing. So much welcome, Mr. Nikhil. So I'll share a small intro about Mr. Nikhil Taneja. Mr. Nikhil is a Mumbai-based writer, a producer, a storyteller, an entrepreneur, and a youth mental health advocate. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of a youth media organization called IVA. I hope it's Yuba, a platform that creates purpose-driven entertainment to empower young Indians. Mr. Nikhil has been responsible for some of the biggest hits in the Indian digital space. At Whitefield, and around issues like women, sex equality, in Canada, which we can grant free on our also
Hi, sorry, was everyone? I think I couldn't hear you, Gladys. Was everyone else able to hear her? Is it my time to speak? I'm just checking.
Yes.
I think
yes,
I'll just.
we can hear you well.
Quickly. Okay, I'll just very quickly introduce myself a little bit further. She's already Gladys. First of all, I want to apologize that I am in a moving cab right now, but only for another 2-3 minutes. After which I will just change my location after that. Gladys already said that I run an organization called Yuva, which works on youth impact and social impact in India. We work at the intersection of what we call the important and the interesting. Our aim is, how do we make important things interesting for young people? How do we talk about the most urgent issues that young people face, but in a language that is accessible to them? So we are very active on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter. We have about, more than 500,000, followers across all these mediums. We talk about issues like mental health, gender, sexual and reproductive health, climate change, many, many other issues. But in a way, and using content, storytelling, and entertainment, but also through offline events, through community activations, through college activations. We work with India's top and some of the world's top brands and nonprofits, from Instagram to Tinder to IBM, from one hand, and to UNICEF, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, etc. On the other hand. We work, again, our aim is, how do we ensure that we are making young people feel a little less alone by trying to talk about things that we know matter to them, so that they find themselves being represented through storytelling and entertainment. In the past, I've been working, actually, I was on the global advisory board of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's community called Goalkeepers. And before that, I actually spent most of my life in the entertainment industry. So I worked with India's biggest movie studio as a producer. I also used to be a teacher. I used to be a professor at a university in Mumbai. And with Yuva, I've tried to bring together my passion for young people and my passion for storytelling, and combine that with my skills as a producer, as a filmmaker, and as a teacher. so that I'm able to create an organization that listens to young people, which I feel is one of the most important things that unfortunately we don't do enough of in the world today. We don't really care about listening to young people enough, and I feel like we're trying to change that in the organization in India. Again, I'm just sorry about all the noise that you're hearing in the background. You'll have to give me 2 minutes. I'll just change. I've pretty much reached my place. But I'd like to, before I go off for a minute, I want to thank the UN Academic Impact and MCN for partnering to deliver the Millennium.
Nikhil, I think we lost you there.
Reached my place. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be back. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a really long and meaningful chat with you all. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be back. Thank you.
That's fine. As Mr. Nikhil settles and changes the environment, meanwhile, I can be reading some of the introductions from the chat box. We have Miran Asaf from Sukkur Iba University from Pakistan. We have Mr. Itorho Abgal. We have Itorho Abigail Obehi from Nigeria, University of Port Harcourt. We have Chino Ikwegwebu from Nigeria, University of Port Harcourt. We have Sneha Hassan. We have Wilma Brand from Australia, Griffith University. Hello, everyone. Hello, Wilma. We have Raj Shikhar from the Cohort of National University of Study and Research in Law, Ranchi, India. Thank you for joining in. We have Sneha Hassan, Government Model Engagement from India. We have Piyush Sonar from India, from the cohort VN19 Nagpur. Thank you very much for joining in. And before we forget, I would like to request all participants to remember to mute themselves as we continue, please. Then we have George Singh from Court of Christ University, Bangalore, India. We have Nima Guru from Nepal campus from Nepal. We have Muhammad Usman from Yobe State University, Damaturu from Nigeria. We have Diana Nakasala from Muni University in Uganda. Thank you for joining in. We have Olwashe Milo Alawi from University of Ilorin College of Health Sciences, Kwara State, Nigeria. Thank you for joining in. I would like to welcome the fellows to introduce yourselves. You can unmute yourselves and you can raise your hand so that you introduce yourselves, and please put your video on. Thank you. Any participants ready to introduce themselves, you are welcome.
Hello. My name is Nyakeo. I'm a medical student at the University of Nairobi, Kenya. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nyakeo. Anyone else to introduce themselves? Anyone ready? Feel free to unmute and have your video on. Meanwhile, as we introduce ourselves, I can be reading the comments. We also have Modilim Kenechuku Dave from Nigeria, Afe Babalola University. We have Stanley Egbe from Nigeria University of Port Harcourt. Shout out to Port Harcourt. You represent the university well in the chat box. We have Mukadas Fatima from University of Kashmir. We have Brian Joshua. We have Samuel from University of Ilorin, Nigeria. We have Abhis Kanashia from India, from National University of Study and Research in Law. Shout out to National University of Study and Research in Law. We have Onajomo Patience Imeke from Ambrose Ali University, Epkoma in Nigeria. Thank you for joining in. We have Stephen Samuel from Nigeria, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi. Thank you for joining in. We have Brian Joshua from Nairobi Chiromo Campus, University of Nairobi, Kenya. Shout out to you, and thank you for representing them. We have Priscilla Agbola from Afe Babalola University, Nigeria. Thank you for joining in. We have Nyakio Buru from College of Health Sciences, University of Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for joining in. We have Ikemue Ebogwa Kennedy from Ambrose Ali University, Nigeria. Thank you for joining in. We have Uka Queenet from Afe Babalola University, Nigeria. Thank you for joining in. We have Sieti Umi Fatima from University of Kashmir from India. Thank you for joining in. There's Aditya Tiwari from Ashoka University, India. Welcome. We have Febina from Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology, Kerala from India. Thank you for joining in. And many, many more. I would like to welcome us to represent our universities by introducing ourselves. Maybe I can appoint someone, and then after introducing yourselves, you can appoint someone else, yeah? Is that okay? Trivedi, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, hi, I'm Rudra Trivedi. I'm guessing I was the one that you were pointing to. I'm Rudra Trivedi, I'm from India. I'm a law student at Symbiosis Law School, Noida. And I follow Mr. Nikhil Taneja on all his socials. Although I don't use Instagram, but on Twitter and everywhere. And I know his work. I know his work in mental health. And I really look forward to reading everything that he has to say. Yeah, I'm very excited to attend this discussion today.
Okay, the email has been received. And however, this hello, James.
Perfect. Thank you. Gladys, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think the speaker is back, so you can go ahead and call on him.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nikhil, for joining in. Back, we can continue. Thank you for everyone who introduced themselves. You can continue posting your questions in the chat box, but remember to mute as we have the speaker during the session. Thank you. Welcome back, Mr. Nikhil.
Thanks, Gladys. Thanks, James. And thanks, everyone, for your patience. Mridula, thank you for all the kind words. So happy to hear that you follow the work that we are doing at UVA. You mentioned mental health, and I've also been told that for the fellowship, mental wellness and self-care is a really important theme for you. So I just want to I feel like one of the things that even before I get into what I want to speak about today, I'd just like to say that it's just so important to also have empathy for yourselves. I feel like, all of you are passionate about so many other things that you'll be doing. But be kind to yourself. That's something that in the work we do, especially in the kind of social work and social impact work we do, we always keep ourselves last. And I feel like that's something that I'd just like to point out and request you all
to just not keep last, prioritize yourself, make sure that you're also being just as kind to yourself as you are to everyone else. Yeah, I mean, again, thank you to the UN Academic Impact and MCN for the Millennium Fellowship. And I've just heard such great things. I got the opportunity to meet Sam in New York, and it was so amazing to hear about all the wonderful work that the fellowship is doing and Millennium Fellowship is doing, and the kind of people over here. So I mean, I have there's a lot of questions that I'd love to answer. That's really why I'm here. But before that, I'll very quickly talk about something that's really important to me, and I feel like that's just the only. I'll take about 15 minutes of your time, and then we'll go into the questions for sure. So I consider myself primarily as a storyteller. So I'll just very quickly tell you a story from my life, and that will hopefully make a point that I want to tell you all. So I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Bahrain, and when I was very young, when I was about 14. And that's very young for me. I know that's not very young for all of you. You all must be like teenagers yourselves. so yeah, for me, it was 20 plus years ago. So it was very young. I used to be a writer. I used to write for local newspapers and magazines. And my email ID, and all of us, I'm sure, have had very embarrassing email IDs. My first email ID ever was Nikhil is cool 1986 at yahoo.co.in. And I used to just think of myself as this really cool person back then. And I was flaunting it. And I used to write, at that point of time when there was not much social media, I used to write these letters to the editor of local newspapers and magazines where I would give my opinions because I thought that I was very cool. Now, what started happening was, because my email ID said 1986, and this was the year 2000, so people, I think the editor of one of the newspapers kind of guessed, and they were like, "Are you 14?" I said, "Yes, I am." And they just thought that that's a really cool thing to write about. So I did publish my letter. And then underneath the letter, they would write Nikhil Taneja, age 14. Nikhil Taneja, age 14. And so people started getting to know not just that the fact that this is a very opinionated person, but this is a very opinionated teenager. And while I thought that that's going to obviously get me a lot of love and recognition because my letters would keep getting published, I did get a lot of recognition, to be honest, but I did not get love. I got actually the opposite of that. It was a very weird thing, but somehow I ended up becoming, like, I think, one of the most hated young people in all of Bahrain. And it got so bad that, I remember these instances that, people would first start writing against me. They just say your opinions don't matter. Your opinions are stupid. You're 14. Who cares about your opinions? And you need to understand how difficult it was for people to say this out at that time. And I'll say why it was difficult. Like right now, it's very easy to go on the internet and just troll somebody, right? You can just make a fake ID, or sometimes with your own ID, just go on any of the social media platforms and just say something random to someone. At that point of time, we were literally writing letters to the editor, right? And only few people who had a little bit of privilege had email IDs, but most people would actually post letters. So like, imagine the effort someone has taken to kind of hate on me. They would write a letter, they'd put it in in an envelope, they'd go to the post office, they'd post that letter. That letter would somehow, postman would come and take that letter, take it to the newspaper office, they'd give it to the editor over there. The editor would open it and say, yeah, well, this is important, this must be published. And the letter would pretty much say that Nikhil is an idiot. That was the whole context of the amount of effort that people would say that take to say that, my opinions are nonsense. But this online hate at that time, or the paper hate at that time, started translating into hate in the unfortunately, I remember this one instance where I was at a college I'm in a school assembly. I was in, I think, the 9th or 10th standard at that time, and people who were in the senior classes would stand at the back, and the younger folks would be at the front. We were studying in a school called Indian School Bahrain. I know, the most unique name in the world. All Indians will go to Indian school, and I remember, like, we'd have these prize distribution ceremonies, and at one of the ceremonies, somebody, because Nikhil is cool. I was also winning a lot of prizes. And so someone called my name out and said, then the award goes to Nikhil. And I remember so distinctly, I came from the back to the front. And all the while I'm walking, the entire, assembly hall is booing me. They're just going boo. And I remember I had to walk all the way from the back to the front. And it would, and things were just getting really hard for me. People, I remember that there was a time that I was playing cricket at a pitch sometime, and I was bowling at that time. And somebody came and threw a ball there's a ball that was thrown to me. And I was surprised because I was like, wait, I have the ball. Where does the ball come from? And then I found out it's not a ball, it's a stone. Somebody had literally thrown a stone at me and then shouted my name out saying, Nikhil Taneja, age 15, you suck. And again, I know that it was because my age was mentioned. I know that this was again about the letters that I was writing. I was very perplexed that, why would, it's okay. I mean, sure, you don't like my opinion. Maybe you think that I am too young or too naive to give an opinion like this. But why would you hate me so much that you'd physically throw a stone on me, because you just don't like my opinions? So I actually, this is a long story short. I kind of left the school. I left the country. I went to a different school in India to study. And then I remember, literally on my first day in that school, I had this thought that if I don't go back, if I stay in this school, and if I, it's almost like as if I've run away from my life. I felt like that would become my story. My story would be of the boy who got bullied and then just ran away and did not confront it. And that would mean I'm away from my parents. I'm away from my family. I was in a hostel at that time. So I decided to go back. My parents were very kind, even though they had, taken me away from Bahrain, put me in India. They took me back. They said, no problem. You come back. It's okay. You join school again. And then I remember 6 months I had to homeschool. And then I joined school again. And the funniest and weirdest thing happened. One day I was in a bus, and it was very surprising because I had it. It's been 6 months, so people seem to have forgotten. Nobody kind of remembered, which was good for me. But 6 months down the line, I'm in a bus, and one guy who was in the same class as me came to me, and he's like, Nikhil, I used to follow your letters when you used to write them that 1 year ago. And then I saw that you disappeared. You stopped writing. You were not even, I think, in Bahrain for a little while. What happened? Now, I'll tell you one thing, when somebody asks you some, a lot of the times people don't ask you because they don't want to listen to you, right? People don't ask you questions like that. Even when we say, how are you? We don't actually intend on asking in a way that we get an answer. You're just asking as a social, construct, how are you? I'm fine. And that's it. But when this person asked me, I just felt like I had so much insight that I finally got the opportunity to tell someone. So when he asked me what happened, I told him the whole story. Well, you know what? I used to get bullied and this happened and that happened. Someone threw a stone at me. Someone booed at me. I went to India. I came back. He heard the whole story patiently. At the end of the story, he's just like, I'm so sorry. I joked at him. I was like, why are you sorry? It's not like you did something. And then there was an awkward silence, at the end of which this boy says, actually, I did. And I'm surprised. I'm like, wait, what did you do? And then he told me that one of the many letters that would be written against me, he was one of the people who was writing those letters, and I was shocked on hearing that because I said, well, I didn't even know you at that time. I have just come to know you in 11th standard. Why would you hate me if you did not know me? And then he said something that, I've never been able to forget. He said, well, I hated you because I didn't know you. And now that I know you, I realize that you are a decent person. I used to think of yourself after reading your letters that what kind of a narcissist person, what kind of a pompous person writes their age underneath their letters? Why do you have to tell the whole world you're 14? And I was like, first of all, they published it. I never, kind of did it on my own. But at the same time, he's like, I just had this misconception of who you are basis what I read. And now that I know you, I just feel really sorry. So I just want to say I'm sorry. I shouldn't have written those letters. And at that time, the first thought in my head was, well, you've said sorry. I've spent, 6 to 8 to 9 months getting bullied. I've spent 6 months running away from my home in Bahrain, away from my parents, away from my family and friends to India. I've spent a certain amount of money to leave and come back. My younger brother got bullied one day because of this. He got like beaten up in school because he was my brother. And at the end of this, you just have sorry to say. And at that point, I just wanted to punch him, honestly speaking. That is the first thought that was in my head. But then suddenly there was another thought that came in my head. And that's a thought that I've been carrying to my life even today. And that thought was coming from what he just said. He said, well, I hated you because I didn't know you. And I recognized, and the epiphany that I had was, well, if you know someone's story, you then can't hate them. He had heard my story. He had listened to me patiently. He had heard everything that I went through. And now he had this incredible thing for me called empathy. And because of that, he didn't need to come and tell me that, I would never have known. He didn't need to tell me. He was writing under a pseudonym. He didn't need to tell me that he was the one who was writing those letters. But he did. And when he told me, when he heard my story, he felt like he needed to tell me. And that's when I had this biggest recognition about the power of stories in this world. When you know someone's story, you can't hate them. You can't be angry at them. When you know someone's story, you can't misunderstand them. That's the power of stories. In that one moment, even though I had gone through all the bullying, even though I had gone through hate, even though I had gone through, a very tough time, in that moment, I realized what stories can do. Stories fill us with empathy. They help us understand one another. They help us connect with one another. They actually make us human. We are not human beings, haven't come so far in life because we are the strongest animal. I'm afraid of cockroaches. But I think the reason we have reached where we are, because we've been able to pass the knowledge of everything we have learned to the generations to come in the form of stories. Right from the first cave people who would, draw graffitis in their caves. Stories have helped us build community and tale by tale our whole world. And when you think about it, we are actually the sum of all the stories we have grown up on. Our morality, our value systems, what we want, what drives us, what saves us, what heals us comes from stories. On the other hand, and where stories fill us with empathy and stories help us recognize that, the world is, we're all one people. Somewhere or the other, on the other hand, there is something called labels, which I feel is like the opposite of stories. When we don't know stories, we unfortunately look at people in a very myopic way. And the same thing that happened to this guy. He did not know my story. He had only read a few letters from me, and he had made an opinion based on the age that I had published in the newspaper, and thought that, well, because I'm young and I'm putting myself out there in public, maybe there is something, maybe I'm a narcissist, maybe I'm a pompous person. He found something to dislike in me on the assumption that I'm not a good person, because he had put a label in his head basis what I write or basis what he had seen. That's the problem with labels. Labels divide our world into us and them. We've always, all of us have got labels. There's not a single person on this chat today, on this webinar today, who doesn't have a label. I can promise you that. Whether it is labels from the color of our skin, about how much weight we have, about what is our height, about even gender is a label. What kind of politics we have, what background are we from, what religion are we from, what class are we from. In our schools and colleges, we get labels based on the marks we get, your toppers or your failures or your average. It is so sad that, we reduce full lives to incomplete stories. We reduce deep, complex human beings to one label from something that we have either read about this person, an internet comment, a tweet, an Instagram post, or just the way they look, and we form an opinion, and we think that we know everything about this person because of that one label. We feel like we don't know the struggle someone has faced, the obstacles someone has overcome, the heartbreak someone has experienced, the story of their life, blood, flesh, of living, of all the stories that people are made up of. We don't know any of that, but we only see a label. And labels are so easy to attach everywhere. At home, in our families in places like India, and I know a lot of people from Africa over here, boys are told that you can't cry because you're strong, and crying will make you weak. Girls are told you are weak, you don't have to, you shouldn't compete with the boys because you're not strong enough. Everywhere there's a label. Everywhere we are told, because of a certain identity that the world thinks we have, that kind of unfortunately becomes our stories. Now, I know, again, seeing all the folks from India and the Asian subcontinent and Africa over here, I can tell you, when you speak to people in the world outside, everyone has an opinion has an assumption of who we are, what our background is, basis just the fact that we are from these countries. Hollywood, for example, has repeatedly portrayed India and Africa, and all the countries of Africa in a certain light, always showing that, we are a backward society. We're a society that doesn't have multitudes. We're a society that doesn't understand or, is as advanced as the rest of the world, which is patently false. We are doing just as much work, if not more. We are taking the world forward with all the work and all the efforts we put in, just as much as anybody else. But it's just these stereotypes and labels that people attach to us. Stories are how we overcome these labels. If we don't tell our stories, if we don't listen to the stories of the people around us, we will never be able to overcome these labels, these stereotypes, these that are attached to us, that are told to us that, the world has divided us. Every labels try to emphasize the differences between us, but stories help us empathize with all the truths that exist within our own. In our deeply divided world today, a true act of courage is to listen to the stories of those unlike us. It is to be able to tell our own stories, our own truths. There is fake news today. There is all kinds of narrative being built. There is so much hate, so much anger on the internet, and all of that really comes from the fact that we cannot look at people beyond what is visible to us. But when we listen and when we speak our truths, we recognize that there might be many truths out that might be contradicted to us, but it doesn't mean that they should be denied. When you know someone's story, you can't invalidate them. And it's so important to tell these stories, to listen to stories. I feel like one of the most important things as a leader and as somebody who's running an organization of young people, I always tell everybody, we feel like vulnerability is weakness. If we tell our stories, we'll be judged. If we tell our stories, that people will look down on us. If we tell our stories, then people will make fun of us. But that's not true. Vulnerability is actually strength, and it is the greatest strength that you can have. When you think of the stories of all the people that you admire, all the heroes you admire, it is the vulnerability in them that inspires you. It is that part of their life where they have bounced back from failure, the part of their lives where they have struggled and then made it, that you relate to. It is the vulnerability that you relate to. So don't be afraid of being vulnerable. Tell your stories, because your stories need to be heard. And until you tell your stories, the world will keep deciding what your stories are. If you are a boy, the world will think of your story in a certain way. If you are a woman of any other, or someone from any other gender, whether what your sexuality is, whether your background is, whether the country you're from, you will be given a story unless you decide to take it in your own hands and tell it. if you don't question the stories that are put out, the narratives that are put out, the stereotypes that are put out in the world, if you don't get angry about it, if you don't speak up about it, you will never be able to change the world, beyond all the unfortunate stereotypes and all the unfortunate, boxes that we're all holed up in. So the second thing I always say is that lead with listening. One of the big reasons we don't tell our stories is because we are like, well, no one heard our story, so why should we, listen to somebody else? Why do we have to care about what someone else is going through because no one listened to us? But here's the thing, if you listen first and not talk first, the person you're listening to will have so much gratitude for you and so much catharsis just because you've offered them the respect of listening, that they would then want to listen to you as well. But if you want to talk first, not everybody might want to listen. So lead with listening. When you finish listening, there is empathy in the room that leads to more stories. Stories always lead to more stories. So listen to the stories of those who are unlike you, and I can promise you that you will realize that there's so much more that unites us. The world has reduced us to these labels, but we need to find our stories, our truths out there. Sorry, there's someone. I think, yeah, sorry, it was someone's on. It wasn't on mute. But yeah, I was just coming to the end of what I was going to tell you. But yeah, I think to be able to express is the most liberating, cathartic thing. Do not let the world define your stories. As people who are working in the social sector, who are working in social impact, it is so important that people don't just see the work you do, but the reason why you do it. Why do you care about the things that you want to talk about? All of you might be working either on a certain issue that you're passionate about, or might even have your own organization at a very early age. When you're telling the whole world about the work you do, don't just speak statistics, don't just speak numbers, don't just talk about why these issues are important from a global level. Talk about yourself, talk about your story, and the world will listen. And when you have stories from, when you are in a organization like this, where there are so many other fantastic, incredible young people, offer them the respect of hearing. Tell them that you'd love to hear them out, hear their stories, and I can promise you there's so much more you'll learn, not only about them, but about your own stories. You will have so much empathy, and that's what we need in leaders today. We need empathetic leaders, we need leaders who listen, and we need leaders who are kind, who don't look at the world as divisions, but look at it as one people, who look at the world as all us, and not us and them. So yeah, that's, don't let the world define your story. Don't let the world limit yourself to a label. You matter, your stories matter, no matter what anyone has told you so far. Just because you're a human being, your story matters. You don't have to be the greatest person to have your story told. You can just be a human being and your story matters. So tell your stories out there, put your stories out there, listen to the stories of anybody unlike you. And I feel like that's going to be one of the most important things you can do as young leaders. Yeah, that was just the beginning. I wanted to some little bit of context that I kind of like putting before we go into our conversation. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. As I said, listening is just as important. So really happy that all of you very patiently listened. I'd love to answer any of your questions right now. I work, as I said, across social sectors. I'm a social entrepreneur, but I also work, my company is a for-profit. So if you have any questions about entrepreneurship, around mental health, around storytelling, around impact, very happy to answer. Over to you, Gladys, over to you, James. And yeah, I'm here to answer anything you might have.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikhil. It has been amazing hearing from you. And my key takeaway has been the power of storytelling. Until we tell the stories ourselves, the world will decide for us. It will decide for us our stories. It's time we spoke our stories. Yeah. Thank you so much. Some comments from the chat box. We have Stephen Samuel saying that stories help us realize our true identity, which is very true. We draw inspiration from the stories of those that have gone before us. That is very true. A quick question, Mr. Nikhil. From your educational background, you studied computer engineering, yeah? However, you currently engage in the non-profit industry and storytelling. What drove you into this career path?
Sorry, I think I went on mute earlier. You know, while of course I think again this is a story, right? You're talking about stories because I'm a boy, and I was a boy born in India. Unfortunately, most parents feel like every boy in our country needs to do engineering. And again, that's the story that is given to us. It's a story that every boy has to believe in, because they feel like the only path to making money, or the only path to success, is through engineering. So I also did that when I was young. I don't think I had an option, because I was living the story that society had given me, that was given to me by my parents. So I did engineering, but my passion and my love was always in telling stories. So after engineering, I tried very hard. I recognized that I don't have that much time in life, and I think all of you young people, particularly, I see all of you at such an early age trying to work towards impact. We all know that there is never enough time. So I kind of went to Bombay, which is the hub of filmmaking in India, and for me it was always, I just feel like stories can make you feel less alone. I feel like if you're able to uh, tell stories in a way that in an authentic way, in a truthful way, then someone somewhere is hearing it and feeling a little less alone. And that's really one of the biggest reasons why I chose the career of being a filmmaker, a storyteller. But since then, it has been, as I said, because I was a teacher, and as a teacher I used to, and as a professor I used to listen to the stories of my students. I realized that every young person has so much to say, but unfortunately there's not enough people to listen. So with my company and with Yuva, I wanted to create a platform that listens to young people. And how do we now hear their stories, and how do we represent their stories to the world in a manner that is accessible and that is authentic? That's a very short explanation of my entire career.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. You're still highlighting the power of storytelling. Yeah. I hope my fellows are learning from you greatly. So something else, you've incorporated filming and production in advocacy. What do you think is the role of these platforms, especially in mental health awareness?
I honestly think that there is no better platform than content. Like, of course, I work as a filmmaker, so I work as on large platforms. So I might do it through a web show. I've made a bunch of web shows in India. I've made films. I've made TV shows. They are the largest way that you can reach an audience. When you grow up, and I've already spoken a little bit about storytelling, but when you think about it, we connect with each other growing up, through stories. Even when we are having a simple conversation, just when you imagine when you're meeting a friend after a very long time, and the person says, how have you been? And if you have something that has happened to you in the time since you have caught up, the first thing you'll do is like, okay, I have so many stories to tell you. And you start telling those stories. As human beings, we are storytellers naturally. And that is how we connect with each other. We become deeper friends because of the stories we tell each other. When you share your deepest secrets, that's when you know that you trust somebody. That's how you form human relationships and human bonds. So storytelling is the most important way of connecting with people, and to be able to do it at the largest level is always going to have the biggest impact. Having said that, I feel like social media and the internet today is one of the most powerful mediums of being able to share the work you're doing, share your stories. And again, I feel like one of the biggest one of the biggest obstacles, or one of the biggest challenges we face in the world of social impact is because there's so many different people doing so much different work. We kind of always feel like the work is important because X number of people are afflicted with this issue, or Y number of people have faced these problems. But the world doesn't care about statistics. What the world cares about is the single story that they can connect with. So even when the work you are doing, if you can distill it down to sometimes the story of the world or sometimes your own story. As an example, Malala, one of the biggest, best known social impact, leaders in the world. She's become so big because the whole world has seen her story unfold in front of our own eyes. We have seen how she went through, how the Taliban attacked her, how she came off, she fought that, and then she's in the public eye again. And that story is what we have found inspiring. And that's the reason we follow so much of her work. And same with Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is not just the fact that she speaks about climate change. It's the fact that, we've seen the story of a 13-year-old girl who went every Friday, in her home country to sit sometimes alone for days at end, saying that I will not move from here. I'll come here every Friday until you start taking climate change seriously. It is a story that has inspired her. It is a story that has made us connect with the issue of climate change so much, because it is. And that's what you need to understand. You don't even need to be a storyteller where you are making content. Of course, while content helps, films help, web shows help, Instagram helps, Twitter helps, all of these mediums help. And if you're able to find a way of telling your stories through this medium, nothing like it. But what helps more than anything else is to be able to find a way of telling your own stories to the world, why you do this, why it is important to you, or that one single story that you feel the world can relate to. So I feel like there's nothing that is more important than this medium to be able to talk about all the issues that you care about, but even mental health. And as I said, I feel like I think all of us in many ways are lonelier than ever before, because there's so much that we have inside of us that we want to put out in the world. And, there's so much noise in the world that we constantly feel like no one cares about this work that we're doing or who we are as people. And I feel like, to be able to connect with people, even through an online medium, to be able to connect with people through content, through stories, will help us feel less alone and just help us in our mental health in that sense.
Wow. That's amazing, Mr. Nikhil. Thank you for answering the question. We now come to the question and answer session. All fellows are welcome to ask a question. You can raise your hand and unmute to ask a question. Meanwhile, we have Nyakio Mburu asking, but what about all those sentiments on how it is better to operate in silence and allow success to be the noise? Can your story not speak for itself?
That's a great question. Honestly, it's a very good question. I feel like there was a time in the world where there was less noise. There were not as many platforms. There was not as much social media. You were not constantly barraged with information. And at that time, when you were doing good work, your work was visible to people. Unfortunately, the world has changed drastically. It's almost now that if your work is not out there, people don't know of it. If you are not talking about your work, does it even exist? Now, of course, it might be having a great impact on ground, and no doubt about that. And there might be people who might, care about that work. There might be people who might respect you, felicitate you. But at the same time, if you want to reach more people, if you want outreach, if you want your work to have the widest possible audience, you will have to take the narrative in your own hand. And that does not mean that you're showing off. Let me also tell you, it's not that you're being, pompous. It's not that you're showing off or telling the world that look how amazing I am or how great I am that I'm working on these issues. You are just being honest and telling the world that this is what I care about. And it would mean so much if you would join me in that. And when you put it like that, when you put out your own stories in that way, where you are showcasing the work you do, where you're proud of the work you do, where you advocate for the work you do, and you advocate of why it is important by telling your own story, people see through that. See, everyone over here is an authentic leader. There is, all of you are doing work in a way that is truthful, that is powerful, that you're not doing because there's money at the end of it. You're not doing it because there's an award at the end of it. You're doing it because it matters. And I feel like when you're doing work which is with that honesty, if you put that honesty out into the world, they will connect with your work, and maybe you'll find more people who will join you in that effort. So maybe earlier at one point, yes, it was probably better to just let your work do the talking, but today you need to do the talking for your work. You can't expect, with so much going on in the world, for people to care about what you have to say. I hope that answers your question. I know it was Nyakyo who asked. I hope I'm pronouncing your name.
Yeah, thank you. You pronounced it well.
Yeah. I hope it answers the question.
Wow, thank you for that. There was a hand from Moon. Moon, you can unmute.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes,
you are.
Okay. It was actually great to join today's session because, sir, your story wasn't only uplifting, it was very influential as well, because I myself am going through quite a bit of a tough time right now, but I think that listening to you has just given me, the inspiration to actually stop thinking about too many things and then, start doing what I'm really passionate about. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself actually. I'm Muntahati Nikita and I'm the campus director from the campus of Bangladesh University of Professionals, Bangladesh. And so I had a question for you. So basically, you've been telling us how important storytelling is for various reasons, to connect with people, to take our organization to the level we want to take it to. And we can say that whatever we may want to do, storytelling can be the part to build up a base where people will be able to connect and grow the network. So I have the question, what can be the best way to deliver our stories to other people? How can we make our stories effective and emotional and influential at the same time?
Yeah. Moon, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. And it means so much to me that, what I said resonated with you. Also, I just want to say all of you have such lovely names, Nyakyo, Moon, all of you, such beautiful names. So there are two aspects to this, Moon. I think great question again. One aspect is, how often and how much you talk about what means to you, right? Like when you look at some of the biggest advocates in the world, it is their passion and commitment to the issue that they constantly put out into the world, that people get to know that, okay, this is what this person talks about. As an example, if you have when you look at leaders like AOC, for example, someone I really look up to, she's in America and she uses storytelling in the most incredible ways. She uses Insta Live. She talks, she makes reels. She uses Twitter. She's out there in any medium telling people why it is important to vote, why do people need to care about democracy, why is it so important for young people to join in. She uses every available medium to reach out to young people and people at large, because that's the world today. When you say effective storytelling, it depends upon who is your audience. If so for example, sometimes your audience might be philanthropists. Sometimes because you need funding. Sometimes your audience might be, other non-profits or for-profits because you need partnerships. And in that sense, maybe Twitter is a great platform for you to constantly tell your stories. But it will also, as I said, listening is important. You will also need to engage with stories of others on Twitter as a platform so that people get to know, okay, this person has a really important voice. This person is very passionate about the work that they're doing, and they're constantly interacting with us on this topic. So I feel like maybe this is a person that I need to be connected to. Now, if you're on the other hand trying to reach out to young people, you will need to get on Instagram, you will need to get on TikTok, you will need to get on Snapchat, you will need to find the accessible language in which you can talk to young people. If they are going to be doing TikToks, you need to learn how to do TikToks, because there's nothing more important than to be able to communicate with people in a way they understand. Because if you are going to make a great, beautiful video and you put a certain amount of money and effort there, but that video is put on YouTube and you have nobody watching, then what is then it's never going to help you. So what is important is, A, you recognize who your audience is, B, you recognize the language in which that audience understands or communicates. That can be social media, that can be offline, any language they communicate in. Then you need to either get understand that language and become an expert in that language, or you can employ or partner with people who have strength, whose strength is that language, and then communicate using that language. So both things are important, both the language in which you communicate and the audience who you are trying to reach out. You are not telling stories for yourself, you're telling stories for them. And if you're telling it for them, you need to understand how would they like their stories to be communicated to them. If they prefer Instagram, you have to get on Instagram. Unfortunately, there's no other way of. I have started doing reels for the longest time. I was like, I'm not going to do reels. I'm a writer. I'm going to write. But, my audience, when I talk about mental health, is a young audience. And if I'm not using Instagram reels to talk about mental health to them, many of them will never get to know, what is an important thing that I might have to say on this topic. So now I have to be on it. And you know what? It's okay. It's a learning process. I'm growing, I'm learning, and I'm able to communicate far more effectively. So I hope that answers your question, Moon. Moon, if
you answered the question.
Okay.
I hope that answered the question, Moon.
Yeah, she's.
Meanwhile, we can take another question from.
Thank you very much for your answer, and I've got what I was looking for. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to unmute at that moment, but now I can. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Moon. Thanks for the question. I think we have a question.
We take that from Samuel. Stephen Samuel, are you in a position to unmute and ask?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Stephen.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Your voice is breaking.
My question, are there any, sorry, my name is Stephen. Was there any time, sir, that you were afraid of expressing yourself, like telling your story? Was there any instance, and can we just learn a little from there, sir? Thank you.
So again, great question, Stephen. By the way, I love your smile. What a great smile. And let me tell you two things. A, the first time that I spoke about my story, which is I spoke about mental health, and I spoke about what I went through, and I faced clinical anxiety. And the first time I had to put it out, I was so scared, because I was like, I'm talking about an issue that is very important to me, that I have lived with for a very long time. Mental health has a lot of stigma. What if people judge me? What if people look at me as a weak person? I'm a man talking about mental health. What if people think that, okay, this person is not strong anymore? I was very, very afraid. Somehow, I took courage from my students, my young students in my college, who don't hesitate to speak up. And I thought that I should put my story out into the world. I was inspired by them, honestly. And when I put it out in the world, I received so much love, so much kindness, so much empathy. My story got shared very, very often. And I was so grateful, honestly, that, and I realized the power of stories, the amount of people who reached out to me after that saying that, thank you for putting your story out. I realized that this could never have happened had I not been honest, had I not been truthful, which I think is one of the most important things when you're telling stories. Tell your truth. Tell it from your honest heart. Tell it from your authentic self, and people will connect. The second thing I'll say is, that was the first time I was scared. And the second thing I'll say is, I'm scared every time, Stephen. I'm also, there is never a time that I have to go on stage and speak my story that I'm not afraid of. I'm always afraid, and that's okay. I feel like that fear is good, because that helps you recognize that what you're trying to say is honest. Honestly, if you are not afraid, it means that you have practiced something that is not honest, that is fake. You are, people who are not afraid are the ones who are, putting on narratives into the world, because their narratives are concocted, they're not real. But if you're afraid, it means you're being authentic. If you're afraid, it means you're being truthful, and that's important. So it's a good thing, lean into that fear, feel proud and feel happy that you have that fear, because that means you're going to say something that means something. So yeah, fear is great, and fear leads to great stories, and those stories, as I said, can actually cause a ripple into the world. So thank you, Stephen, for such a lovely question.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nikhil. Maybe you can take one last question from the chat box. We have Mukadas Fatima. Are you in a position to unmute and ask? I can ask the question on their behalf. Filmmaking is also a way of sharing stories. Do you have any favorite directors whose storytelling you like in films?
Yeah. I just see, I have a lot of favorite directors. I have like a lot of people whose work I admire. There is a filmmaker called Richard Curtis. Who is also part of the project Everyone, who's made these lovely romantic comedies that I used to just love growing up. There's a filmmaker called Richard Linklater, who has again written so much about love, and I always kind of connect with people who write about love, because I feel like there is so much anger and hate in the world. Anybody who writes about love is I feel like very important. But I feel like what is also important. Oh, she's from University of Kashmir. So great to hear from you. I don't know. Should I call you Fatima? Should I call you Muqaddas, please? But so happy to see students from Kashmir on this forum. But yeah, in Indian directors, in South Asian folks, I feel like I've grown up seeing Fatima. I've grown up, I've also worked at Yash Raj Films. I've grown up watching the films of Aditya Chopra, DDLJ. Those are the ones that have made the most impact to me. But I feel like there's a lot of great filmmakers right now. Anurag Kashyap is always doing such great work. Anurag Basu, Shujit Sarkar. There's a filmmaker called Dibakar Banerjee, whose film Oye Lucky Lucky Hua is one of my favorite films of all time. Vishal Bharadwaj does some great work. Zoya Akhtar does some great work. There's so many storytellers. There's so many, internationally. There's always like I feel like on the internet, on streaming platforms, such good work is happening. Something like Stranger Things, just incredible storytelling, and it helps you. Sex Education as another example, right? It's a show which is about teenagers, but they've managed to talk about such important issues. They talked about everything from mental health. They've talked about sexual harassment. They've talked about being pro-choice, rights, about sexuality, about gender in such beautiful ways. I feel like any story that is able to somewhere make you feel like you belong, I think is a story that I connect to, and is a director and a filmmaker that I look up to. And they're just wonderful ones. And I hope you are asking that question because you yourself want to be a filmmaker, because we definitely need more female filmmakers in our country and in our world. And we definitely need filmmakers from, from areas like Kashmir, where I'm sure you have so many stories to tell, but unfortunately not enough people are able to hear those stories. So Fatima, please, please become a filmmaker. Please tell your stories. Would love to hear them and watch them on some screen at some day.
Wow, thank you so much for that. The last question, I hope we'll be the last, completely the last. Nyakion Buru, I'm sure you can unmute and ask that, yeah? Hi, Nyakio.
I think she's she's not unable. She's unable to mute.
Okay. I can read the question. What about the fear of feeling like you might not be able to tell your story consistently? For instance, let's say one starts out talking about they love being a doctor, and then they change into talking about they love being a farmer, and then focus ultimately on something like like
I love. I love the question. I think the question that Nyakio is trying to ask is that, because we evolve as people, our stories keep changing. And as the stories keep changing, it might be very difficult to tell the world and show the world. And sometimes you might find it, you might yourself be disillusioned. So, I mean, I feel like, first of all, Nyakio, your questions are wonderful. They're so meaningful and so deep. And I feel like, I have said this before and I'm going to just say it again. I feel like the world responds to authenticity. They respond to people who are able to showcase every part of them versus a curated aspect of their lives. Like, I think at one point it was okay. There was a time where you would only know the best parts of everybody. But I think that world is over, where you looked at people only as one thing. Today, every young person is many things. Yeah. You will have the Swedish prime minister who is a great politician, but she's also someone who loves partying. And when she put out, there's this beautiful thing that happened when she put one of her videos of her dancing with her friends got leaked, and the media started making fun of her and saying, oh well, she's a prime minister of the country, how can she be dancing like this so frivolously? And in response, many Swedish women put up videos of themselves dancing, saying that it's okay. You know what? A woman can be a leader and still love dancing. A woman can be a leader and still, love enjoying with her friends. You don't have to be one thing or the other anymore. And I think all of us contain multitudes. I think the world and the internet today gives us the opportunities to explore all of these multitudes. And I don't think that people will get disillusioned. I don't think that, I think it's when people see your growth, it is actually far more inspiring to them to see that a person is capable of change, is capable of evolution, as long as you are obviously putting everything out there in a manner that is truthful, that is authentic. I'd also say one more thing: don't just talk about the good parts of your life. I think people need to know that people who on the internet, especially leaders, especially people who are working on impact, they need to recognize that you're capable of failure. And that failure is just as normal as success is, that you might have a bad day just as much as you have a good day, that you might, the reason for you might change from wanting one thing on one day to wanting something else on another day is absolutely fine, because you're a human being. Now, where of course, if there's a message that you have that you consistently want to put out there, that's something that you need to obviously recognize that, but yeah, I just genuinely still feel like, if people see the honesty in you, they will always respond. One last thing, because I read your question, that I would say is that I think one of the solutions, Nyakio, is that if you are also somebody who wants to put out, some part of your life out there, but from a lens of, whether you're talking about your mother, whether you're talking about people that you love, I think it's just okay to also have two accounts, where you can have a private account where you're sharing updates about who you are as a person and what you love doing and what you like doing. And then you can have a public account where you're also being authentic, but you're particularly talking about your work and your career. And as part of that, you are always you're talking about not just, as I said, the highs, but also sometimes the lows, where you're comfortable with sharing that the ups and downs of your work career. So if you keep these two accounts separate, I think that can be helpful to you. Although I have only one account and I talk about everything in that account. And I'll be honest with you, when I just put up photos of myself, people don't give as many likes as I do when I write something about mental health. And that's okay. I am okay with people sharing all my mental health posts and then giving only, when they see my face, giving very few likes. But I want to put my face out there because, it's my feed and I want to share, my face sometimes with the world just as much as I like sharing the work I do and and the things that I love. So it's fine. It's fine. I don't think, we are okay. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to try different things. It's okay to do whatever works for you. And that's always the most important thing. What is going to work for you? I hope that answers your question, but really lovely question.
Wow, thank you. It has been an amazing session. We could even have the session for 5 hours. The questions are limitless. Thank you very much for having you, Mr. Nikhil. So now that we have so many questions, we would like to know, have more knowledge about what you're doing. How can we keep in touch? And please, can you give us your final remarks as we wrap up?
I think you all have already put my social IDs there. I'll also put the ID of my company. Please go have a look. We are Yuva. The company is called Yuva, and the social IDs are We Are Yuva. And I'd love. I think you will get a good sense of how we use, the internet and how we use social media to talk about things like gender, to talk about mental health, queer rights, LGBTQ rights, but also in a very fun and interesting way. And I feel like if you are able to bridge the gap between what is important and what is interesting, then anything that you want to put out into the world, I think people would be very happy to resonate with it, share it, talk about it, because you're speaking in their language. So have a look at some of the work we do. I think you'll get a good sense. But yeah, please try. The only last thing I'd say is, well, I've already spoken about mental health, and I will repeat that please be kind to yourselves. In the social impact space, we all get so attached to the work we do, and we put so much of ourselves that we burn out very quickly. It's very important to constantly take breaks. It's important to give ourselves a little bit of love and compassion, the same that we give to everybody else. And just always try to find, while the work is important, unfortunately, in today's age, it is just as important to talk about that work. So keep finding ways where you can bridge this gap between the work you do and how you are reaching out to people with that work. If you are able to do that, you'll become a master at the work you do. And more importantly, I think many more people will connect with it. And that should be the aim always, right? How do we reach out to the maximum number of people to care about the same thing that you care about? But yeah, I'm available on the social IDs that were given. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm very active on Instagram, on Twitter. I'd be more than happy to answer you. Sam and other folks will have my email ID as well. If you have anything you want to ask me, I'll put that as well over here. Feel free to reach out. And yeah, I would love to keep in touch with you all. Thank you so much to all of you. Honestly, thank you so much to Gladys for moderating this so expertly, and for the 5 minutes that I'm so sorry about all the initial, the noise at the beginning. But thank you, James. Thank you, Gladys, for understanding. Thanks, Sam, for having me. I'm just so happy that I could be part of this.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikhil. It has been a very amazing session. And as we wrap up the session, one reminder, the power of storytelling. Don't let the world decide for you. It's time you speak out your story. Thank you very much. Back to Team MCN.
I just like to ask and request that if I'd love to take a picture with all the people who are happy to put on their cameras. I think it'd be really nice to have a screenshot picture of everyone over here. I know most of you have had your video off. I hope that wasn't because you were not listening, but it was bandwidth issues. So whoever can put on their cameras, I'd love to just capture this moment. But again, I just again want to talk about how amazing the work that you all do is, and I congratulations on getting selected as part of this fellowship, and I hope you continue leading with empathy, humility, and inclusion. And now for a picture. A lot of people are coming on slowly, steadily. I think people were not expecting the picture, so now everyone's rushing to switch on their cameras. Okay, I think we've got a bunch of people now on. I'll take a picture. Okay, I'll do 3 to 1, and then when I say 1, just pretend that you really enjoyed this. Okay, it's 3, 2, 1. Pretend. Thank you so much. It was so great having you all over here. I'm going to share this on my social IDs, but yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Let's meet you in the next session. Thank you.